Paul Anderson was born in Eden Prairie in 1943. He grew up on a family farm. He's a proud descendant of one of the Eden Prairie's earliest settler families. Think Anderson Lakes. The land was preempted in the early 1850s. Elizabeth Anderson came to settle here she was Scotch-Irish, with 8 children, leaving 3 of her kids behind along the way in Galena. The Andersons had large families. It was said land on the east side of Eden Prairie was all owned by the Andersons. Paul graduated from Eden Prairie High School in 1961, and in 1965 with departmental honors in political science from Macalester College. He earned his JD from the University of Minnesota Law School in 1968. This led him to his judicial appointment in 1992 to the Minnesota Supreme Court. Paul is deeply committed to public service. He is proud of his family's deep roots in Eden Prairie. His mother, a teacher, Father Kelvin served on the Eden Prairie School Board, and his daughter was a teacher at Eden Lake Elementary. Paul was a new young attorney when his mother, Helen Holden Anderson, formed the Eden Prairie Historical Society in 1969. Paul helped with application to the Minnesota Nonprofit Corporation and assisted in writing the bylaws. Paul was honored last year to Eden Prairie School District's Hall of Fame. He is the highest ranking elected official in Eden Prairie history by winning statewide races for the Supreme Court. Paul lives and breathes his love and affection for the city of his childhood. And we welcome him back, and we'll bring him up here.
I would like to introduce Ron Case. As we all know, he's the mayor of Eden Prairie. He's also a huge supporter of the Historical Society, and he's going to moderate the discussion between Justice Collins himself. Thank you, Ron.
Good afternoon, sir. As Kathy just introduced, we get a twofer in this person right here, this human being who is simultaneously from 2 centuries.
He said very nice things about this Paul Anderson guy. No. Let me in on a secret. He did serve on the Supreme Court, and Anderson Lakes are named after him. But the story is that Anderson Lakes and Paul Anderson are very similar. Both his jurisprudence and the lakes are shallow and murky.
You heard it from him. So, Justice Loren Collins, so good to have you here this evening.
I have a question. This lovely lady, she pulled some strings. How did she get me here? I mean, I'm not in hell, and I'm not in purgatory, but I'm in kind of a suspense, and all of a sudden I'm here tonight.
How did you get him here from the past?
Because I know he loves me.
May I sit down, sir?
You may. My wife loves all those kinds of shows and movies where there's time travel. So really, truly, yeah, that's true. So maybe there's some Loren Collins infatuation there that I don't know. I'm not worried about it. But,
so I understand my job is to speak to you for a while. Your job is to listen to me for a while. And I really hope we finish our respective jobs about the same time.
We have about 45 minutes dedicated to this interview, and Justice, I'll just leave it not named, back in the room a few minutes ago said I had the hardest task here this evening of keeping him on track. If you've ever heard him speak, he's amazing, and he will go on in detail a lot on a lot of topics.
My wife shamelessly laughed very loud at that. She knows me well.
Well, we're honored to have you here, and honored to claim you from Eden Prairie. And even though Justice Loren Collins has an Eden Prairie connection and did live here a while, and therefore we can claim a little bit of him, he might say, well, I will ask you in a moment, if he were asked, he might more say St. Cloud or Lewis.
I would say Hastings and St. Cloud, and then Minneapolis.
Not necessarily. You don't hear Eden Prairie in that. So I'm very proud and clear to say, close your ears for a moment because you don't like this guy evidently, but Justice Paul Anderson is our highest ranking elected official ever in the history of Eden Prairie, and we're so honored to have him. But you are Justice Loren Collins tonight. So I think we should start with the connections that you have to Eden Prairie. So clearly you did live here.
Oh, yes, I lived
you
here
did
for a
come
little
here
while.
as a 16-year-old. So talk about that early time and early Eden Prairie
I
memories.
lived here for
Keep
a
that
little
down.
over, don't worry about it. Is that in any case, is that
Collins.
my dad, there's somebody here who's kind of got Nantucket ancestry. Is it that gentleman over there? So, I mean, Eden Prairie was settled by some people who came from the east, and then a lot of people who came from across the sea, particularly Ulster Scots, okay? My dad was born
Charles Collins.
Yeah, he was born in New England, worked in a cotton mill in Massachusetts, but like so many of people that age, he wanted to seek his fortune. And he had a little bit of a wanderlust, okay? He and some guys purchased a ship, run around the Cape, went to California, and like so many, is that pretty much lost his shirt in the...
This is Charles Collins, your dad.
And so then he came back after a year to Massachusetts. And then he put together with other guys a group to come out here and settle. Now, Eden Prairie, this is a sad story, is that the treaty that Travis de Sioux. There was a demand for land. Ramsey was a territorial government, and they wanted to take the land from the Indians. And there was that treaty, Travis de Sioux. Actually, there were 3 treaties. The government treaty, the Indian treaty, and the traders treaty. And they cheated the Indians. But basically, the southern third of Eden Prairie, the Indians gave it. But when we talk about Eden Prairie and about that time, you need to understand the different concept of land ownership between the Native Americans and the Europeans. The Europeans would cut out a piece of land, 160 acres, and say, it's my land. And stay off my land, it's my land. The Indians' view of the land, it belonged to everybody. So think about the Indians signing that treaty, agreeing that all of Minnesota belongs to everybody, whereas the Europeans said, we're going to get and settle it and use it for our own. And that was a very tough thing for the Native Americans.
So Justice Collins, before I take you right into what was Eden Prairie like in your memory, 1854 and 5 when you lived here, I just want to say one thing. You have descendants that you don't even know exist. 4 generations down, sitting across the front row here, and they actually brought an artifact of yours, which you can talk about later.
Oh, yes.
But let's not jump there, because that'll get you...
Come on, bring it up.
All right, we'll go there. This is your sword.
I will talk about this. No, I'm going to give it back to you. But this, oh yes.
Do you want to jump there, or do you want to go back to what?
Back to it.
We'll come back to it. But I just want to.
I did not think I'd ever see that again.
Nor did we, but nonetheless, raise your hand if you are a Collins descendant, a Justice Loren Collins. I think all of you. Yeah, you're looking around, so I think you are. So this evening, when you go home, find out how many generations down. But he's going to talk about himself, Loren, but he's going to talk about his dad, Charles, and his dad had a brother, William, and he had a son, your first cousin, I believe. Yeah. So he'll talk about all those are in your family tree. So fascinating.
See, my father came up the river. By the way, they went to Galena first. Galena was a bigger city than Chicago. They had lead, and the dock was full of lead ink.
We're talking 1854.
Yeah, a little before that even. That's where Ulysses Grant had his tannery.
Yep.
And so I went to Galena, took a boat up the river, made it up, fastest boat, 2 days, 17 hours and 20 minutes.
From Galena to
It
St.
had
Paul.
a broom on front showing it's the fastest river boat. But it'd come up to St. Paul. I remember when I came here to St. Paul, it was the old state territorial capital and the only really big 2-story brick building around, and it had this wonderful cupola. I was quite impressed. But my father went to St. Anthony, went to Minnetonka Mills, worked in a mill, took a boat across Lake Minnetonka to Excelsior, religious site for the Native Americans, and came down, staked a claim on a southern edge of Lake Hazelton.
In Chanhassen.
In Chanhassen.
Today.
Never went back there.
But he ended up settling into Eden Prairie.
Oh yes, that's a nice story.
Go ahead.
The woman who named Eden Prairie came up from the town of Hennepin up to where flatlands. Somebody said there's an airport there now. But they
what's
said
an
that it
airport,
would
though,
look
right?
in the spring with the flowers. She said, "This surely has to be the Garden of Eden." So it was a very beautiful area. So my father came to Eden Prairie, and when he got here, there was a lynch court going on. Now, not everybody who was in those courts got lynched, but it was a land dispute between Sam Mitchell and George Gorman, both Ulster Scots. But Mitchell was a Protestant. Gorman was a Catholic. Most of the Ulster Scots in Eden Prairie were Presbyterian. So I don't know if he got a real fair deal. But anyway, the decision of the court was he had to leave town within 24 hours. My dad had $100 gold in his pocket, and that's how we wound up having
And that's a
land in
lot of money in 1853,
that's a lot of
$100
money.
in gold.
A lot of money. I don't know how he got it, but that's how he got his claim. And he got a log cabin, 2 acres of tillable land, good meadow, and some. Now I'm going to digress a little bit. Some of you will think, these early settlers. You heard about the Homestead Act?
Put the mic right there.
Yeah, and there's people who came in, they could homestead. My ancestor did not homestead because President Buchanan and the Southern senators did not want to encourage settlement of the West because the settlement of the West would be free states. So you had to pay money for land that you claimed here. You marked it out with, the surveyors weren't even through here in '54. And so you'd mark the trees with an axe, and you could have 160 acres. A lot of people, 160 came into 400 or something like that.
It was $1.25 an acre, right?
125. You could mark your claim, and then within 6 months you had to go to Minneapolis and pay. And that was a lot of money. Oh, I got another story. You had to come across money however you could. So the Anderson, I got this from Mary Jane Hill's book.
Which is your 4 great-grandmother.
Yeah. Anyway, there was some swampy land with cranberry bushes on their property. And they saw the Indians down there harvesting these cranberries. Fact is that she was watching them, and then she had a lunch for her husband, and the Indians came up and scared her away, and they got the lunch. But what they did is they got the cranberries, harvested them, got well over 100 bushel, and they got $1 a bushel for those cranberries. This was a good deal. And they wanted more the next year. So they figured the best way to do it was to drain the swamp and really let the cranberries grow. Well, if you know anything about cranberries, they grow in swampy areas, so they didn't. But that's how they got money to pay for their land.
So, Justice Collins, back to that Gorman story real quick before we move on into the Indian uprising. But they drove Gorman. Both men had not bought it yet. They were kind of
staked
both
it claim.
squatters. But the Protestants drove the Catholic government away. And your dad, it was Charles Collins, then he was able then with $100 of
He
gold
showed up at
to
the
buy
right time.
160 acres. And for those of you in the room that know where I live today, that's exactly it. My house is probably on the log cabin that you lived in for 2 years.
And by the Red Rock.
Yes.
That was sacred to the Indians.
It was right between Red Rock Lake and Starling Lake and where the airport is today. That's
That
where
was
Justice
the,
Collins,
that was the old Indian trail.
Your four-great-grandfather lived.
That was the Indian trail that came up from the river bottoms and went to Excelsior, the sacred site. And Red Rock, they would stop at Red Rock and chant and say prayers and all that.
Yep. So why don't we move ahead into your father decided to sell, and he got offered $10 an acre 2 years later, so he grabbed it. And he moved down south, but you then, by 1860, had gotten involved in a regiment, or 1861 or two. Go ahead. The Indian Uprising.
The early settlers had a lot of wanderlust. My dad did that too. It was going to settle down Faribault. Actually settled in town Lewiston, which is just down the river from Cannon Falls. Then a flood came and wiped that out. So that's where they went to Hastings. My father did not want me to fight in the Civil War. Just did not. He did not want his son to get killed. I wanted to go. Father Abraham, patriot. I finally joined Kennedy's brigade in August of 1862. We had a going away party. Oh gosh, yes, all the young ladies were there. It was kind of a nice thing, and there was pies and food. And then a guy came in and said, there's an Indian uprising. The Indians have attacked the settlers out near New Ulm. So we knew right away the party had to be over. We put ourselves together. I went and took a wagon and got some of the other settlers from around, and we went up to Fort Snelling to see what we were going to do. Sibley took charge. He wasn't a general then. He was kind of a shady Indian trader, but, you know, history probably treating him okay, right? I don't know. They probably named things after him, probably. Well, maybe they'll get some revisionist history on that. But we've got a brigade. I was elected second lieutenant. You know how that happened?
How did that happen?
Well, I was reading for the law. I knew a little bit of the law. And there was a Catholic community about 10 miles, 12 miles west of Hastings, and they needed a road.
Is this the Ignatius Donnelly town?
No, this is not Ignatius Donnelly. If you want, I'll talk about Ignatius Donnelly.
We digress. Go back to the Catholic priest.
That's a mixed bag, you know. I mean,
Catholic priest.
He's remembered well, but you know.
Are we back to Ignatius, which I shouldn't have taken?
But anyway.
But Dr. Robleski in the back is an expert on Ignatius Donnelly, if you ever want to
Ignatius
But go ahead.
Donnelly
The
wanted
Catholic
the town
priest.
Fort
Snelling.
Diginger to be the proper place. But anyway,
Right.
I
Catholic
helped
priest,
the
Fort Snelling.
Catholic Church get
Second
a road.
lieutenant.
And so those guys from the Catholic community were up there at Fort Snelling. The priest said, that Collins guy is a good guy. And so on the third ballot, I got elected second lieutenant. And we took a boat up the Minnesota River, overnight bivouac to Chaska, then to Henderson. And then we went across country to Fort Ridgely. When we arrived at Fort Ridgely, there was a Irishman who just came in to the fort, was absolutely breathless. His horse was exhausted. In fact, his horse died shortly after he arrived. But he was bringing a message that the troops that had been sent out to pick out the bodies and help some of the settlers had been attacked by the Native Americans. Birch Coulee was the place. And it wasn't a well-defined, defended place. And so I knew I was in for something big when they said 7 men have been killed, 9 have been wounded. You know, that's for a young kid, you know, this is big time. This is life and death stuff. And so it was a big deal.
So that led you then, after the uprising, you actually were witness to the largest execution in
Oh,
the
you're getting
United
ahead
States
of
history.
yourself. It was a very vicious time. About 500 settlers. We don't know how many Native Americans died. Little Crow was the leader, but he didn't want to be the leader, but he was kind of, by circumstances, forced to be the leader. But it was a vicious, nasty gathering. And I got a couple of stories here. And so,
Grab one of them.
you know, they didn't come up as far as Eden Prairie. We thought they did. We saw a fire burning. We thought, oh, they're burning somebody's home, but it was a haystack that caught fire. But in the New Ulm River Valley area, it was very, very hard fought and vicious. A lady who later settled in Eden Prairie said she saw what was happening. The Native Americans came to the neighboring farm, shooting in the windows. She didn't know what to do. And so she couldn't escape. So she got some whiskey, put a little strychnine in it, more than a little, I guess.
Oh.
And then she went down into the root cellar, pulled the door behind her, and prayed to God that she'd be safe. She heard the Native Americans up there reveling around, a lot of noise, wrestling, and then it was quiet. After it had been quiet for a while, she tried to get out. She couldn't get out. When the other settlers came, they found 11 dead Indians in her cabin, and a couple of them had fallen and died on the trapdoor, so she couldn't get out. I mean, this is kind of what it was like. Oh, I got another story too. The Kellers went to Hutchinson. Most of the settlers left, and the road to Fort Snelling was crowded, but some didn't. And the Kelly family near Hutchinson didn't leave. And so the settlers who left all their livestock. They got very wealthy going around and collecting their neighbors' livestock and staying. Anyway,
So Justice Collins, real fast, and then I want to move to the Civil War quickly, but you were not a witness to the hanging that day of 38 Native Americans after Abraham Lincoln had commuted hundreds, but you were a guard. Tell that story real quickly. You were the guard of many of the other Native Americans. So you were there that day.
I'm older now, and I can look at that in reflection. That was a very, very sad event. Okay. General Sibley organized the troops. They divided the Indians between the Peace Indians and the War Indians. The Peace Indians separated, took with them some of the hostages. So then Sibley mounted the attack at Wood Lake against the War Indians, and in a pitched battle, defeated them, captured them. It was Camp Release where the hostages were, and they had trials. Anybody familiar with the term kangaroo court? Yeah. It was kind of like a kangaroo court. And is that when people don't know who people are and they're different races, everybody looks alike. So when the Indians came, everybody was committing an atrocity. And so 302 Native Americans were condemned to death. And the execution was going to be down in Mankato. Now, this is a mixed bag of history. The names went to Lincoln, and he went over every name and every act, and he pardoned all but 38, okay? That was very controversial. And they didn't get it all right. Chief Chaska, Shockley was a bad guy. He was a bad guy. Chaska defended the settlers, but they misspelled his name, so he was executed. And so that's kind of a...
But, so real quickly, you, though, your role, you were a first-hand witness. You guarded...
I guarded the Indians who weren't being executed.
The ones that were not being hung, the ones that were... And you witnessed them after the hanging doing what?
That's where... I mean, they're savages. They're heathens, all right? They're not human. And that's where I had kind of an epiphany, and I realized that the
they're not
Native
savages,
Americans
they are human.
and they have the same emotions.
But they began to wail and cry when
They did a death chant, and when they heard the gallows drop, you could see tears in their eyes.
And you were a witness to that because
I
you were
saw
guarding
that. I
them.
was with the Native Americans. I did not see and I'm glad I didn't. I think that would have haunted me the rest of my life. 38 individuals died at the same time. No, a couple of the Indians were a little overweight, so a couple of the ropes blocked and they had to go back. It was not, see, the Native Americans
Put the mic up.
were hated by the settlers out there.
Justice, put the mic up.
Oh, okay. So I was part of the detachment that marched them to Mankato. We went by St. Cloud, or New Ulm. That was a very bad scene. See, the Native Americans had attacked New Ulm twice and had been repulsed. But after the second one, the settlers in New Ulm went down to Mankato. They were angry and vicious. They came out and attacked the Native Americans with axes, pitchforks, hoes. I mean, we had to do our best to keep the settlers away from the Native Americans. Folks, see, this was not a good time, a pleasant time in Minnesota history. And I regret that I kind of was there to witness it.
So we don't have a lot of time, but I do want you to share that you were, the regiment after the uprising was called then, ordered down to the Civil War, down to Tennessee.
Yeah, you don't.
But you have
See, I
Justice,
had
pick
a lot
one.
of Civil War experiences.
Justice, pick one
and I
battle.
want to tell you about them, and he's told me I can't.
Just for the audience, what I would love at some point would be, there's a lot of people that love the Civil War in this room. And he has, Justice Collins has firsthand leadership really experiences.
Oh yeah, I became a captain.
Yes, you did. Going all the way down to Alabama,
I was
Tennessee.
only 5'4". You know, they
did
called
know
me
that.
the little
Did you all know
captain.
I
hardly believe
and
that
so
these
we're
12
gonna
people here
we're
are
gonna bring him
relatives.
back. That's my point on the Civil War. We'll bring him back. We'll have a Civil War conversation. Can you pick one memory of your time? Because you were basically under Grant, but you were also
No, I can't do it. One memory?
One.
No, I can't
of
do
the
it.
Civil War time.
Okay, let me. After
know you
the
can.
execution, I was with Sibley as we traveled the state of Minnesota to make sure everything was safe. Came back to Fort Snelling. I went south. I was part of the Western Offensive, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska. Dealt with a lot of bushwhackers. Took Selma, which was a cotton hub. But if I have to pick one, and this is hard, I'll pick the Battle of Nashville.
Yep.
I think they're going to put a picture, painting of the Battle of Nashville in the Capitol, in the new Capitol. It is, but
It's there today, everyone. You know that in the governor's reception room.
December 15th. General Thomas, slow trot Thomas, very deliberate general. He was a Southerner who stayed loyal to the Union. And he was in charge of the troops in Nashville. Now, what was happening is a vicious battle at Petersburg between Lee and the Union troops, just atrocious. And then you had Sherman cutting a swath 60 miles wide through Georgia and then heading up to the Carolinas. Hood wanted to join Lee at Petersburg. The way to do it was to come up through Nashville, go to the Ohio River, go up to the Ohio River, and there. So he had to get through Nashville. That's where Thomas was with his troops, and a couple of Minnesota regiments, really good Minnesota people. So, but Thomas didn't go after Hood. He was deliberate. Slow trot
Thomas, yeah.
He did flanking operation. I was part of that flanking operation, which is going to get me to this piece of metal here, okay? I had fought skirmishes in the South. I overcame a Louisiana Artillery Battalion, and I got a horse, a magnificent horse. The only problem was once you put him in battle, he just went right in the middle of battle, and I couldn't control him. But that horse, we were going to take a artillery battalion on the right hand of the right flank of Hood's or of Thomas's troops. My horse charged, went over the barricade. We took them over, and there was a Louisiana officer who saw that horse, and he said, "That's my commander's horse. Where'd you get that horse?" And so he recognized the horse, and he was so impressed. "Stand up, sir." He took his sword off. Show it. He gave me this sword. This is the actual sword.
So it's a Confederate officer sword?
A Confederate officer in charge of a artillery battalion who was so impressed. Maybe the horse is not so much of me. You can hold it up and show him.
Did you carry it the rest of your time in war then?
Well, I made sure my family kept it.
But you must have used it in battle?
Hey, I got my military issue sword, so I showed it off. It was, okay, not that I'm a conceited braggart, but I used to like to show that off, just like I'm doing right now.
Did you keep it all the way to you?
Oh, yeah, I kept it with me the
your
whole
other
way.
part of your human existence ended in 1912 or something?
Well, I
Did you,
died in 1912.
Right. Did you have the sword all the way in your possession
Yes,
all the way
I
to
did.
the end of your life? And then,
not-
do you
Hey,
know?
come
Do you
on.
know who you gave it to?
That was a battle-earned trophy. You
Do you
don't
know-
give those up.
Who did you give it to in your will?
What?
Who got that sword when you passed away?
I didn't. I just left the family to decide who got it.
Interesting.
Maybe these people can tell who wound up getting it. I don't know, but I'm impressed.
My grandfather, Stuart Collins.
Is that his son?
Yes, his oldest son.
You gave
Oh,
it.
he's the guy that ran for lieutenant governor, right?
No, that was Louis.
That was Louis.
Stuart was the oldest, and the sword came down through.
Oh, that's
That's
fascinating.
my grandfather, Stuart.
See, the Collins people, they were, before the war, they were Democrats. They went to a Democrat caucus and convention in...
They might be again, but we'll talk about that later.
But anyway, politics were rough then, and they disagreed with the other side. He had to... Your ancestor had to escape from a haymow, jumping down a chute where hay is put down, and then run away because the other Democrats there didn't like what they were doing. But anyway, that's another story.
Because of time, maybe we should, though, move into the 1870s. You went into law. You never went to law school, but you learned on your own.
I read for the law. I didn't
just
go to
like
law
Abraham
school.
Lincoln, became a lawyer, got into the St. Cloud area because you had traveled through it in your Army days
I
and
liked
loved it.
St. Cloud when
So you
we
went
traveled.
back to St. Cloud,
Yeah.
got into law, and
And
that's when the
politics.
politics started
I became mayor.
of
I
St.
was
Cloud.
the county attorney for Stearns County, which was larger then than it is now.
Really?
And then I ran for the legislature. Oh, okay. I'm going to digress.
Go figure.
When I was in the legislature, they still had the old territorial capital. They had expanded it and whatever. And at the time of becoming a state, the state of Minnesota issued bonds for railroads, $5 million worth, okay? And there was a lot of, I don't think you have any fraud here anymore, but there was some fraud, okay? Because people took advantage of it, took the money, didn't build the railroads. So the people of Minnesota did not want to pay off those bonds. But then Minnesota couldn't get any credit because the bonds weren't paid, the Easterners. Governor Pillsbury actually worked it out, and the bonds delivered in the dead of the night. But in any case, I am of the opinion that the debate in that legislature was so heated, there was spontaneous combustion and the Capitol burned down.
So that's
It's a true story, it burned
that's
down.
the second Capitol that burned down.
No, that's the first one.
Oh, that's the one you saw when you
Oh, yeah,
first
that's the one I
arrived.
saw when I came. Then they built the second Capitol. Not a very good building. Ugly as sin. I wish I had a picture of it. But then the ventilation system in that Capitol was not very good. And it was just not a good Capitol. So that's how we got the third Capitol.
So when you were in the legislature and then was appointed to a district court, I think first.
Yes, Governor Hubbard appointed me.
So who appointed you to the state Supreme Court?
I think Van Zandt. I'll have
And
to-
we're talking 1892?
Well, I got appointed to the Supreme Court in '87. So, sir, you are terrible.
I
You
tried.
keep talking about limited time. So, I mean, I don't have a watch. So how much, I mean, it's
We have about 10 minutes.
about 10 minutes left, huh? We probably need to leave some time for questions, too.
Well,
don't
maybe we can do a little bit beyond, but what,
I mean, I love questions.
But what I wanted, I know you do. It makes you
we? See, I
allows
control,
you to talk.
any
but
question is within bounds. I control
But-
the answers. Although it's a bit intimidating to see these Collins people here. And
so that's your great-great-granddaughter sitting there, and
Yeah, I
I don't know
know.
what you guys
All
are,
right.
but something. So here's what I want to make sure to get to and in before the Q&A then. So you get appointed to the state Supreme Court. And
I did serve.
And you
with that
served for
esteemed
15
Justice
years.
William Mitchell. He was
Oh.
one of the best justices in total history.
And you got a school named after him.
Yeah. You know what, though?
No, I don't.
The Republicans went after him and beat him in 1900.
He was a Democrat in 1900?
Yeah. But he
So-
was appointed by a Republican, but they wanted to...
So the state of Minnesota in 1900 was like 75% Republican. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
it was the
Father
Abraham
Abraham.
Party of Lincoln and
Oh, yeah.
anti-slavery. So you were a Republican, and
I
you
was.
ran for governor in 1904, but got beat out by Republicans, and it was sneaky. So talk about that.
Define your terms.
It was underhanded.
I was Republican. But this was the era of a certain populist Republican.
Teddy Roosevelt.
You had senators and others who really cared about the people. And there was a lot of anti-railroad sentiment. And the railroads were arrogant, bullies, in fact. And is that the engines kicked off a lot of sparks. So many farmers lost their crop because the fires that burned their crop. But James J. Hill, Morgan, Vanderbilt, they didn't give a, I almost swore, didn't they? They didn't.
That was close.
And so,
We got it, though.
so now I was a pretty popular guy, well regarded, so they convinced me to run for governor.
Had you tried to run for, your name had to have been big. Had you
Oh,
tried
I
to run
was-
for United States Senate?
I was on the list of people to replace Senator Davis after he died in 1900. But I had 2 boys, 3 boys, and they were,
That's funny.
I got to remember that, but they were in the law, and they weren't, my wife had died, and I would have had to move to Washington, and I didn't want to do that. So I declined. But there, you can go check the newspapers, a lot of stories about it. But then 1904, and they needed a good governor, and they came to me, convinced me to run. I resigned from the court. I was going to win, by the way. I was going to win, except, what?
There was a spoiler.
Well, there's James J. Hill. He's not a very nice guy. He's tied into the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, the Whitneys, and that group. And Hill, at that time, was the time of the Northern Securities case. See, I hope you don't have super wealthy people
We don't have
around.
any multi-billionaires
You don't
today
have
at
any
all.
super.
No. They run and
'cause
control everything.
All they are is out for their own interests. They don't care about the people. And so James J. Hill was one of them, okay? And so he didn't trust me. He thought I was a bit of a prairie populist. He's probably right. But I was more for the people, okay? And so what James J. Hill did, used his money and influence, literally bought 125 delegates in Hennepin County to vote against me. So he defeated me with a guy named R.C. Dunn. And I told people, I said, R.C. Dunn is part of that group. He's never going to win the election as governor. You don't do it, don't do it. But Hill was pushing them, and true to form, Dunn lost.
John A. Johnson
John A. Johnson.
won.
He was a newspaper publisher down from St. Peter's. And he was a prairie populist. And so he ran, and he got elected. And history will tell you that John A. Johnson was one of our best governors.
But you would have been.
Well,
You would have been, though.
well,
had you
no,
won.
he was one of our
No,
best.
but you would have been, though, had you won.
Oh, yeah, maybe. But, you know, it's the bitter pill to swallow, but knowing that John A. Johnson was governor made it easier. In 1908, Taft was seeking follow-up Roosevelt. I was listed as one of the major contenders. I lost out to Taft, but I was going to be Johnson did. Johnson was going to be the Democratic candidate for president in 1912. No question. I mean, he was popular, but then he got cancer, and he died. He
So
died.
Woodrow Wilson then stepped in.
By the way, Woodrow Wilson was not a good president. No, really. His first 2 years were okay, but he was a racist. You know, I see all these women out here, okay? Suffrage was a big issue back then. Teddy Roosevelt supported women's right to vote. Taft did. Most of the Democrats. Wilson didn't. He was a racist from the South and narrow-minded, and the last 6 years in office were not very... He gets credit for the League of Nations, I hear, but anyway, he's not one of our better
That didn't work
presidents.
out so well.
But anyway...
So we have now ended our time of this regular. Is there any final comment before Q&A that from your time you would like to leave for the people of
I
our
love
time?
Minnesota. I'm very proud to have spent my life here and to serve the people of the state of Minnesota. We're different,
we thank you. We are.
But, hey, you gotta have some questions. It's not often
Yeah,
you get...
Q&A. So, again, let's just do, just for
Now
your sake.
speak up, because my hearing isn't as good as it used to be.
What?
What?
No, I'm just kidding. 15 minutes of questions. Are you all okay on that? And then I'll make sure to... so just know that we may only get 3-4 questions in. So does anyone have a question?
Ron, can you have him repeat, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I will repeat the question.
Justice Collins, so you've seen a lot of interesting things in your time. You've lived through the Minnesota 7th, I believe. You went to the Civil War. You saw
Yeah.
the Indian Uprising. You saw the Dred Scott decision. I'm just curious, from your perspective, what well-known or not so well-known things is Minnesota responsible for marking in the history of the United States?
Oh, good question. I don't need to repeat that, I think everyone.
Now, I'm a New Englander. My history is New England.
Born in Massachusetts.
But Minnesota was settled by a lot of Scandinavians, Norwegians, Swedes, German, Northern Europeans. And what they did, I mean, and some of us Ultra Scots did too, they brought with us an idea of government and that they cared about their neighbor. I should have mentioned that when we were out here first in Eden Prairie, the settlers cared about their neighbors. They took interest to make sure that they were protected. And, okay, I'm going to get on my high horse here. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. And he wrote the words, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is a theory of government. It comes from Aristotle, the Greeks. And that theory is that government has a responsibility to provide the maximum opportunity for the maximum number of people to achieve happiness. I think that defines Minnesota. Our government tries to make things good for the people. I see pictures of the new Capitol. They have the French statues up there. Wisdom, prudence, truth, integrity. That's what Minnesota stands for. Because Cass Gilbert, I understand, wants them there so that anybody who walks under that portico knows that that is what expected of them. And I think that, for the most part, elected leaders in Minnesota tried to do that. I know I did.
I think we got a really cool answer there from both a historian and also modern day justice.
Are you pandering to me? Hey, come on,
that was amazing.
You
No,
don't
you're
need to
amazing.
pander.
Okay, one more question. Well,
But if Kathy wants to pander, that's all right.
a couple more questions. Another question. Dr. Robleski, nothing about Ignatius Donnelly? He's the Ignatius Donnelly expert, lieutenant governor in 1861.
He was going to make the town of Nininger on the river the big center, and it planted it out. Ignatius Donnelly was a bit of a plunger, you know. Yeah. And oftentimes plungers fall into the deep end of the lake. Yeah.
I think we're in a war. Not a war.
You're going to stand up. My hearing is not so good. So I
We're
want to
in
make
a war,
sure.
buddy.
What?
And it's not the Civil War. It's a war on history. It's a war to change what happened. And it's people like you and people in this room that are helping us to survive this onslaught.
So, you got to repeat that question.
Well, it wasn't a question, but he just feels that we're in a time today that is massively attacking really truth that happened in history, and people like you are helping to preserve the truth.
Yeah, you can tell from me, I love history. But I wrote that book there, and you can show it, I think. You know, history belongs to those who write it. And we got to make sure that the right people record and write history accurately. And that's what that book was about.
This is a book written by Lauren Collins, and actually it was written from his notes, from according to the first couple pages, that he never intended it necessarily to be a book. I'm not sure, but his kids took all of his writings and then made it into a book, and that's him there. Yeah. So except for the color of your mustache.
I should make a mention, we are here at the Eden Prairie Historical Society, an entity dedicated to preserving history, and you are to be complimented on that. You are.
We do well here. Not to brag on my wife and the board, which is amazing, but we have a phenomenal Eden Prairie historical group of people that care in the city. And of course, it's the, Seaver, I won't say old timers, but old timers, not old, but
can I speak to that issue of an old timer?
Please.
You know,
people like you do so well.
Standing up here said they've been here 65 years. Somebody's been here since 81. They make pretense about being old timers at Eden Prairie. They won't be Eden Prairie old timers. I mean, I think Oh, maybe Tommy Anderson might be an old timer. Yeah, his roots go back. Hey, Seaver Peterson might be an old timer, but you know, we have a lot of pretenders. Oh, there's a guy named Roy Terwilliger who used to talk about
Senator Roy Terwilliger.
Be an old timer, and I would just say, "Oh, come on, Roy, you will never achieve that status."
Tommy, I don't call you that, but Tom Anderson. Tommy, stand up for a second. Tommy and Paul's share grandparents, so they're first cousins. But they were just telling grandpa stories.
I never admit to that in public.
Uh-oh, he's coming up. I don't know what that means.
He talks a lot.
Well, that's in the family, obviously. All right. Another question. Who had it? Seaver?
I did have one, but how did St. Peter not happen to be Minnesota's capital?
Oh.
Were you part of that at all?
You want the real answer to that?
Heck yeah.
See, the Republicans, then they were good people back then. I mean, I don't know what it's like now, but back then the Republicans were the good guys, okay? Party of Father Abraham. And so we had a state constitution. Actually, we had two state constitutions. See, the Republican caucus, the Democratic caucus, and the Republicans were a little late coming to the Capitol. And so the Democrats took over things and drafted their own constitution. So the Republicans went down the hall and drafted their constitution. So Minnesota started with two constitutions. And that was not well received in Washington, D.C. You know, come on, you guys, if you want to be a state, you better get your act together. So they worked at it and they worked at it and they compromised. The Republicans wanted St. Peter. They wanted the balanced selection of judges, and they wanted Negro suffrage. The Democrats opposed all of those. The compromise was, and the Republicans wanted St. Peter. The compromise was the capital stayed in St. Paul. The Republicans conceded on the other three things, but they got what they thought would solve the problem. The Constitution was easily amended. You're still living with that these days. It doesn't take the consent of the governor. It doesn't take two different legislative sessions. One legislative session where a majority wants to amend the Constitution, it goes on the ballot. So St. Peter lost out as part of this whole Democrat-Republican compromise. Too much history, I'm sorry, Stephen.
I'm watching the time, so don't worry if you have another commitment tonight. How can you beat this, though? But another question.
You've got to have some questions.
Senator Terwilliger, come up with one. He was our Eden Prairie state senator from in the 90s and into 2000 something, quite a while. Go ahead.
I never had the privilege to meet the original gentleman that was up in front of us tonight, but I did have the opportunity over the years to work with his imitator. And he did a wonderful job as a Supreme Court justice as well. So.
Nice.
Do you still claim to be old Eden Prairie?
I do.
Let the record be corrected. He will never ever be old Eden Prairie. My understand that Helen Anderson adored you, but that does not get you in the door.
That's his mother.
What was the question, Ron?
What was the question?
He was just complimenting.
Oh. Okay, yes. Bob.
In your free time, which you probably didn't have a lot of because you seemed pretty busy, what were your hobbies?
That is a good question. Because I would have to say my main hobby was interacting with people. I really liked people. That's kind of odd for a Yankee, but I enjoyed exchanging stories and comments with them and seeing how I could be helpful to them. I mentored a lot of people, and so, okay, I might injure my elbow when I do this because I'm going to pat myself on the back, and it's awfully hard. People liked me. That's why I was sought out to be a senator, sought out to be a governor. I really genuinely liked people and interacting with them.
I'm sure that gene has passed down through the years.
That may be unusual for a Massachusetts guy, but...
One more question. Yes,
Did you have a
David.
Did you have a corn maze back then, by any chance?
What?
Did you have a corn maze? Seaver has one. I think it was, did you guys play games back in Eden Prairie and have fun?
What is a corn maze?
It's a fine question. We have so much evidently extra corn today that we destroy a lot of it and we run pathways through it and let kids run through it. Go figure, right? Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. I don't know pathways through cornfields, but if the cattle got out and they got into the cornfield and you were a young person like myself and you had to chase those cattle out, it was scary when a big cow was coming down that road, being chased from the other side, and there you were. And so.
And you have a story in your book of when you first settled, and he was only in Eden Prairie for 2 years, 54 and 55, and then they left in 56, and his dad sold the land in 60. And by the way, my house, my abstract I checked tonight, your dad is on it, and your mom, Abigail. So your ancestor owned the land, the house where I live.
Do you have a well on your property?
Yeah, we do. But you did not. You had to go get the... Talk about that story real fast.
That's such sandy land.
Yep, he talked about that 100 feet down of sand, which
you had to
is
go down 100
absolutely
feet
true.
in order to get water. And the sand was...
So you got it from what lake?
Red Rock. Collins Lake.
Yes, Red Rock Lake was called Collins Lake for a couple years in the 1850s. Anybody know that in this room? I didn't know that until I read the book.
And so, I got Starring Lake. Did you know that Eden Prairie was the site of the last major battle between the Chippewa and the Sioux Dakota? 1858. See,
May
the
28th.
Dakota were originally Woods Indians, but then the French traders came in and had metal and guns with the Chippewa, so the Sioux were driven south. They drew the line at Redwood. That's why they painted the trees red. But one of the last battles was down in the river bottoms. Hey, Seaver Peterson was probably just over the hill from where you were. And it was a pitched battle. 5 Chippewa were killed and mutilated by the Sioux. We don't know how many Sioux were killed. You know, this is an interesting fact. The settlers, the white settlers, found that battle to be interesting. But it caused the Native Americans to be very careful how they shot, because they didn't want to accidentally shoot one of the white settler speculators. And so, no, this is a true story. And is that, the Dakota Sioux won that battle. And another factoid here. The Indian Wars. I mean, there were a lot of Indian battles and fights in the East and whatever, but they talk about the Plains Wars with the Native Americans. The first battle engagement was the Minnesota Uprising. That's the Alpha. The Omega was at
Wounded Knee.
Wounded Knee. So, I mean, it's historically the beginning of the encounters with the Indians.
So, I think we've reached the end of this part of the program, and I'll let you apply in just a moment. But I'm sure that Justice Loren Collins and maybe even Paul Anderson might be here. We'll stay a little bit, and if you want to come up and
I don't
schmooze
know if you want Anderson to come. Remember what they said?
See a little bit.
His jurisprudence is like the lake, shallow and murky.
Good point. Come talk to Justice Loren Collins. I know we have more pizza. I know that all the Historical Society boards here, and if you want to learn more about the Historical Society, if you want to
wait before you
join it tonight.
Who here is related in the Collins family? Would you stand up? This is scary, very scary. So, was Collins close to being accurate?
I think you know more about him than I do.
Well, you know that there are 3 sons instead of 2.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My grandfather Stuart was the oldest.
Yeah. I met with Stuart. He's the one that first showed me the sword.
Yeah, and that's Thomas's father.
Okay. I liked him. Good lawyer downtown Minneapolis, you know.
So, Kathy, I'm going to maybe turn it over to you at the end here, and then thank you so much for this. And let's give a big round of applause to